All right, let's get started, everybody. So, my name is Catalina Lopez. I am the director of the Aquatic Animal Alliance at ALI. And I want to welcome you all to the second day of the fourth Aquatic Life Conference. Thank you for joining us today for two exciting panels. If you didn't have a chance to attend the live conference yesterday, we will send you the recordings after the conference so you can catch up on what was discussed yesterday. And today we will start with our panels on essential tools and resources for aquatic animal welfare advocacy. So in this session, you will discover various tools and resources that can equip you as advocates with the knowledge needed to make a lasting impact in protecting and advancing the rights of aquatic animals. So some housekeeping reminders for everyone. The audience is muted upon entry with cameras off, so you will only be able to see and hear from the panelists. You can post your questions in the Q&A box that you can find in the bottom of your Zoom screen, and the panelists will answer your questions at the end. Every session is being recorded, just so you know, and we have a policy of zero tolerance for harassment and discrimination of any kind. So we hope that you help us foster respectful and productive discussions today. This session will last 90 minutes, and we have 5 speakers, as well as some Q&A time at the end, as I mentioned. I see that James has joined us now. Great. So I will briefly present our panelists today, but I'll let them share a bit more about themselves. So we have Murilo Quintiliano from 5 Farms. We have María Cabrera-Álvarez and Caroline Marques Maia from FishEthoGroup. We have Helen Packer for World Benchmarking Alliance, and we have James Morgan from Vegan Hacktivists. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. We're very excited to hear about your exciting work. So yeah, Murilo, if you want to start, please go ahead and start sharing your screen.
I will do. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I know that's a very broad audience. I've been participating on the conference yesterday. It was really, really good and really useful. Thank you, the Aquatic Life Institute, for inviting me to join. My name is Murilo Quintiliano. I'm an animal scientist and also CEO of FAI Farms. FAI Farms has a 20-year experience working with animal welfare and working with the major food brands, processors and farmers all over the world. I'm based in Brazil, in the south of Brazil. Londrina is the name of the city. And we are developing quite interesting projects around aquaculture, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. The main objective of this conversation is to present to you some of the actions and tools that FAI Farms, together with our partners, are promoting around fish welfare, most specifically on tilapia, carp, and shrimp. Thank you very much. So just a little bit of context. We know, and everyone here on this room, or most of us, has a very deep knowledge around animal welfare, the implications of animal welfare on the food productions, both the challenges and opportunities of having that approach of this important matter. And FAI Farms, with these many years of experience working with the actual supply chains around application and implementation of animal welfare practice, we understand, and the history around animal welfare has always been a top-down approach. So science is made, consumers has a perception, and then procedures and standards and protocols and certifications, and all now that the chains or the parts of the supply chains are made. And in the end, the farmer needs to hold all this together and say, what animal welfare means, what can I do? I don't know why is that important? Why does it work? And that has been working with most of the terrestrial species. And on that, we saw an opportunity because fish welfare specifically is quite a new subject, although I don't really understand why, because no one paid very much attention to that. But when we started paying attention of that as a company in 2012, because we are more close to aquaculture supply chains, we said, that might be a lot of challenges, but there might be a good opportunity here as well, is that to invert this, is to have a bottom-up approach, which is why don't we introduce animal welfare to the farmer in a way that he understands, that he can cope with that, and he clearly view that animal welfare is nothing more than taking good care of how you do and how you action on the farm level, transport level, processing level, and then get the benefit to the consumer without forgetting about the science. And this approach is always having the farmer and the animals on the center. So firstly of all is being able to translate what science understands animal welfare means, what the consumer's expectations are towards animal welfare, and translate it in quantifiable and processes that can be applied on the farm level and on the supply chain level where the animals are alive. So that's why that's what we are talking about here. And with that, we just, instead of saying animal welfare is one more thing that you need to do, animal welfare is actually on the core of what you need to do in order to have a better production, better economics, and of course, better quality of life for the people, for the farmer, for everyone that is working with the live animals, but of course, for the animals itself. That's what animal welfare is about. And we understand that science is there. Many people are working into that. Of course, not always with the same view, but with a very interesting understanding on what good looks like for fish. And it's important to say here that fish is completely different from poultry and beef, not just because it's a different, is on a different environment, but a tilapia is not a carp is not a shrimp is not a salmon. When we talk about the supply chain, a poultry, a broiler is a broiler, a laying hen is a laying hen, with slightly variations, but that's it. A beef cattle, a dairy cattle, it's depending, there are different breeds and different strains, but doesn't necessarily have much more different requirements. When fish is different, every species has a different requirement, and Carolina here is the expert on that and talk more about it. So the focus is here is to transform this science into applicable measures, and we know that knowledge and mainly allowing the farmer to have control of what he can do and report back on what he's doing well and be able to understand where he can improve is on the core. So we have developed the species-specific operational welfare indicators. This was the first step of this approach. Then we developed and tested welfare assessment protocol. And because applying a protocol is not straightforward, there are complicated ways of doing that. There are simpler ways of doing that. And we try to find a simpler way of doing that where basically the farmer needs to give an input of what's going on his farm, and he can receive feedback of what is good, what is not so good, where he can improve, and of course he can report back to whatever he needs, whatever he believes is necessary to be informed on what is doing. And of course, it's not just about recording and measuring, it's acting around that. So training and knowledge transfer is part of this process, and it's completely integrated. So we understand that the tool of collecting information is more a learning tool than just collecting it. It's a way that the farmers can first understand what's going on and then have insights of where he can improve. For that, we developed, which has been already launched, everyone can scan this QR code and play around with that. And I would really appreciate if you people do that and provide me feedback with that. So we develop an app, and everything today is an app, but we really give a big thought on this. So we want this app to be able to train and educate farmers, able to identify areas of improvement, with a very strong model on standardizing good production practice and understanding what good production practice means. It could be used as product traceability, although it's not a traceability tool at all. We are not certifying, we are not requesting the farmer to do it but he can use this to report batches, report farm, report his product on what is the animal welfare score of that specific assessments. And of course, one of the targets is help people that are looking for certification. Is a very easy and early stage to start thinking about it instead of making commitments, financial commitments, to go through there right away. So basically, the tilapia welfare is based on 4 categories of survey, which is health, environment, behavior, and nutrition. Has specific indicators that are recognized by science as the indicators, and it's adapted for different farm types. So it goes from breeding to slaughterhouse level. It's tailor-made assessments. So the objective here is not the farmer stops to do whatever they're doing to do an assessment, is that he actually doing a process on the farm, like feeding, and he can actually go there and make an assessment. Very simple to navigate. You click, then you have thresholds where you select what's going on. It's offline, doesn't require internet to do the assessments. Of course, requires internet once you send this to the cloud and to receive your feedback and reporting, and provides an overall score on the pond level, cage level, or batch level. That's you define, and an overall score for the farmer. And that's all based on the scientific publications that we and the teams here in Brazil, Thailand, China, and Europe all worked very, very strongly together to define those indexes. And we know science is developing and it's changing, and we want this to be live. So once we know more about behavior, once we know more about enrichment, once we know more about what good looks like for each species, this can be constantly upgraded and updated, and this is going to be on an annual basis in terms of what those scores are representing. And I recommend for those with scientific background to look into the scientific papers that you can really understand. So you can report on whatever is problem. So if pH is a problem, then you can understand what is a good pH means, and then you can go back to training course that you have specifically developed to that to see what is the right pH level. And then you can look for resources to say, okay, I have a problem. pH levels on my farm is a problem. What I need to do to make it better. We are not defining what the farmer should do. It's impossible to do that in aquaculture because every farm is a farm, even every pond is a pond, but the parameters are the same. The better pH levels for tilapia is the right pH levels for tilapia, whatever they are, and they will be on more stress or less stress or alive or dead, depending on those thresholds that science is telling for us. So the farmer, after doing the assessments or while they're doing the assessments, they have access to training courses that are accessible, responsive, and targeted, very interactive, top of state of the art on e-learning techniques. So very easy, very practical, and very to the point on what they should be looking for and what are the resources they should be looking for in order to improve. So it's beyond measure, exactly improvement. Again, multi-language and multicultural is really important. We understand that the way Brazilian farms are related is different than the way the Chinese farms are related towards learning processes. And it's for vets, students, and everyone interested. So I would like to thank you very much. I would recommend you to access those QR codes. It's free for use, it's free for farmers, it's free for everyone wanting to get access and to play around with that. And I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Murilo, for that presentation. I think this is such a valuable tool that makes animal welfare so much more accessible, especially in the global south and maybe those countries and regions that don't have access to certifications or more formal auditing processes. But this self-audit can help guide the farmers towards better practices. So we're very excited about this tool, and yeah, we look forward to continue promoting it to our stakeholders. Great. So maybe if you can stop sharing your screen, Murilo. So Caroline or Maria, you're sharing?
I'm starting sharing the presentation for both of us. Maria, you start, and then I will continue with the presentation, right?
Perfect.
All right.
Okay. Are you seeing it? Okay.
I can see it.
Perfect.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us for this nice symposium. I'm Maria Cabrera. Together with Carol Maia, we will be presenting this presentation about the Fair Fish database. We belong to the FishEthoGroup, which is based in Portugal, but we have members in different parts of the world. And we collaborate with Fairfish, which are the owners of this database. And so what we will be talking today is about the database as a welfare assessment tool for aquatic species in aquaculture. So as you might know, Carol, can you pass? Do you have the option of clicking? Okay, as you might know, aquaculture is increasing its production every year. In 2020, it was estimated at 87 million tons of aquatic species. Of them, 56 million tons are fin fishes. And it's estimated that this amount of fin fishes is equivalent to 124 billion individuals. And the numbers are even higher for fisheries at 90 million tons in 2020. So if we consider that fish are sentient beings that are capable of experiencing stress and pain, it is very important to have their welfare as an aim. And that's what the Fair Fish database is there for, to assess the welfare of the aquatic species that are being farmed. And that was the original project, and now we are expanding the database into also checking the welfare in fisheries. So if you can click to the next. So the Fair Fish database, as I said, it's a welfare assessment tool, and we define welfare as the state of the individual as it copes with the environment, which allows us to check the welfare at a continuum, so from good to bad, or the other way around. And what the Fair Fish database does is to collect information, mostly from research articles, but also from protocols of farms and books, and where we can see how the fish lives in the wild and how it lives in farms. And then we assess the welfare of the fish in the worst case scenario in farms that don't have the best conditions, and in the best case situation, which will be a farm that allows the fish to have a better welfare. At the moment, there are 83 profiles that have been published, and these profiles are increasing every year, and we also update the information within these profiles because, as Murilo said, this is a process. It's always new information coming in, and it's also like welfare. It's kind of a novel situation for farmers. So there is always information that it's being added. You can access the database using that link, fairfishdatabase.net. You might know it from a different name. In the past, it was called the FishEthoBase, but the name was changed in the last year. So you can, it's the same database, but now with a new name. And yeah, it's open for everyone, and it's aimed at also at everyone, like the consumers, the NGOs, the researchers, farmers, everyone. Next. Yeah, so when you access the database and you look for a species, this is what you find. And this case is the common carp. So there will be an overview page where there is a picture of or a drawing of the species, also a map of the global distribution of the species, and also what's the situation in the IUCN status of the fish, if it's vulnerable or not. Then in the center, there is a summary of several parameters like the habitat, growth, the swimming activity, the reproduction, the type of social behaviors that they have, or the handling in farms, if they are stressed by this or not. This is very general, and we collect this information from all the things that we read. And then we made a general statement about the farm situation for this species, and checking what's like we emphasize on what's what the animals have bigger needs in this case in the farms, and what is usually covered and things like that. And then on the right we have the welfare score, which is how we score the welfare and for these individuals, which I will explain in the next slide. And my colleague Carol also makes a very nice podcast called The Fish Talk, and some of these species have these podcasts embedded in the website. So if you click on top at the farm place in the top slide, then you reach all the information that we collect for these species. And the website starts with this. It's the welfare score with more detail. So for the welfare score, we use 10 different criteria, which are listed here. Home range and depth range are the habitat needs of these species, like how much space in the horizontal and the vertical line they need. Migration, if the fish have any migration needs in the nature and how this is covered in farms. Reproduction, aggregation, the substrate that they need, and if it's provided in farms, if they are easily stressed when they are handled, if there are malformations in the wild, and what's the percentage of these malformations in farms, and if there are slaughter protocols in place for the specific species. And then we score each of these at 3 levels. First is the likelihood, which is what's the likelihood that the individual experience good welfare in minimal farming conditions. So that would be the worst case scenario. And then in the best case scenario, what's the good welfare for the species. And then in the end, the last line of the 3 is how certain we are of this information, because sometimes we only get minimal information for each of these criteria. So only with 1 or 2 citations, we are not sure that the information is correct. So based on that, we score high, medium, low, unclear, or no findings. And when the situation, when these criteria have high in any of the bars, that's what we use for the welfare score at the end. So in the case of the carp, in the worst case scenario, the only one that is high is aggression, because these fish are not aggressive, so we are certain that they will not be having too many problems in terms of aggression, even if the conditions are bad. And For potential, you see 4 points that are highlighted, and these are reproduction, aggression, substrates, and slaughter, because there are protocols for these things, and in farms that are very high standard conditions, the needs of these fish are covered in those 4 criteria. And then for high certainty, there are a lot of information about reproduction of substrates. So those are the 2 points that we score as high. So with all that information, the farmer can look at all that. And if you are interested on the references, you can scroll down and read the whole report, and you can access everything. And now Carol will explain how she's using all this data to assess the welfare of the fish and what's needed. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you very much, Maria, for your excellent presentation of the Fairfish database. And I am Carol Maia. I am Maria's colleague at FishEthoGroup Association. And now I'm going to talk about my postdoc project that is basically using the Fairfish database as a tool, as a resource, to get an overall overview of the state of the art of the welfare of farmed aquatic species with profiles already published in such database. This postdoc project is being developed here in Brazil at Centro de Aquacultura da Unesp, CAUNESP, in collaboration, of course, with FishEthoGroup Association and the Fairfish Association too. And Eliane Gonçalves de Freitas is my supervisor here in my postdoc. So we have a delay to change the slides again. I don't know what's going on. Now it works. Okay, so as Maria just explained for you, we have the welfare score profiles at the Fairfish database. And for each of these welfare check profiles, there are welfare scores that are given for each of the species with profiles already published in the Fairfish database. And for each welfare score, we see the likelihood, the potential, and the certainty for the welfare under farming conditions, as Maria just explained it for you. So with this in mind, with 3 dimensions in mind, we can understand the fish welfare score, the welfare score of each of the profiles in the Fairfish database as a welfare benchmark to evaluate, to assess, and to improve the welfare of aquatic farmed species. So in my postdoc project, we are trying to characterize the state of the art of the welfare of farmed aquatic species, then base it on such welfare scores that we consider as a welfare benchmark for the species with profiles in the database. But we are not only considering the welfare scores as a whole, but we are also considering each of its dimensions separately. So we are considering the values in the likelihood, the values in the potential, the values in the certainty dimensions independently, and also all together composing the welfare score. And how are we doing this exactly? Basically, we went through all the profiles already published, the 83 profiles already published in the Fairfish database. Then we checked and registered the values of the likelihood, the potential, and the certainty for each of the welfare score of each profile. Then we calculated the percentage of these values in relation to an hypothetical maximum value of the welfare score. This independently for likelihood, potential, certainty, and also as a whole. So here, for example, in the Cyprinus carpio example you have here in this left part of the slide, you have 1 for the likelihood, 4 value for potential, and 2 value for certainty. So for the welfare score as a whole, it is a 7 value, and for each dimension, the value is the value per se. Then we used such percentages calculated to classify the species, both for each dimension of the welfare score and then for the welfare score as a whole. And this classification enabled us to better understand the species with the highest likelihood, potential, and certainty for welfare under farming conditions, and on the other hand, the species with the lowest likelihood, potential, and certainty for the welfare under farming conditions. So, as Maria also explained, we have more than one possible classifications for the welfare score. We have high classification, medium classification, low classification, unclear classification, and no findings classification. But as only high classification is considering for the final calculations of the welfare score, there is only high classifications are counted to give the values for the likelihood, potential, certainty in the welfare score. It's possible that when we find a species like this one, Husodaurucus, that's here in the left part of the slide again, there is a species with a 000 in the welfare score. This could mean different things, because this 000 could mean that, in fact, it is a species with a high number of classifications as medium and low. There is a species with, in fact, just medium or low likelihood, potential, certainty for welfare under farming conditions. Or on the other side, a species with too many classifications as unclear or no findings. There is a species that needs to be much more investigated before we can say anything about its welfare conditions in farms. So because of this, in my postdoc, we identified such a species with zero values in the 3 dimensions, which corresponds to 21 species, and went through their profiles to check and register the findings, the no findings and then clear classifications. And then again, we calculated the percentage of these in relation to a hypothetical maximum value of the welfare score, and classified such species, again, to better identify the ones that has, in fact, medium or low likelihood, potential, or certainty, and the ones that have too many unclear or no findings in their profiles at the database. Another objective of my postdoc was also better deeply investigate the criteria that Maria also explained for you. We have the home range, depth range, migration, reproduction, aggregation, aggression, substrate, stress and malformations, and slaughter. And one idea was to evaluate which of these criteria, which you can say are also welfare aspects, are determinant for the current state of the art, for the current overview of the welfare of farmed aquatic species in general. So for this, we are trying to basically answer these 2 questions. The first of it is, in which of such criteria we have more high classifications for the likelihood, the potential, or the certainty of welfare under farming conditions. There is, in which criteria of this, among home range, depth range, migration, and so on, we have a greater chance for the fish to experience welfare under basic or improved farming conditions, or a highest certainty about this. And on the other side, in which of these criteria we also have too much unclear and no findings classification, meaning that these criteria, these welfare aspects, should be much more investigated in the literature for the species in the future. So we are trying to find the knowledge gaps, basically, also. So it's this, data analysis is in progress. We are almost finishing them. We started to write the manuscripts. We will try to submit the first one as soon as possible. So results are coming soon, hopefully. And I would like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, to talk about the furfish, to talk about my work. I'll be happy to take any of your questions. And I would like to say thanks for Jenny Volsdorf, who is our editor-in-chief at the Furfish database, and also to Eliane Gonçalves Freitas, who is also my supervisor here in Brazil at CalNesp in my postdoc. Yes, thank you. And here is just the references that we used in our presentation, just if you would like to take a look at them. Other way, I will stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol and Maria, for your presentations. We are big fans of the Fairfish database, and thank you for helping the world actually understand better the complexities of welfare of aquatic species. It's such a big topic to tackle, and really that database makes it so easy and accessible for everyone. So we thank you for your work and for sharing that with us today. We'll save the questions that people may have for you for the end after all the presentations. So yeah, maybe Helen, if you want to take the stage.
Yeah, thank you. Just let me share my screen. No, that's not what I wanted to share. Okay. Well, hello everyone, and thank you for being here, and thanks for having me on this panel. It's a pleasure to be here and also to learn a lot more in depth about animal welfare. My name is Helen Packer, and I lead the Seafood Stewardship Index at the World Benchmarking Alliance. So I will start with giving you a short overview of the World Benchmarking Alliance in case you're not familiar with it, or maybe as a quick reminder. So WBA is a nonprofit organization based in the Netherlands, but with staff based all over the world. And it was founded in 2018 by 4 founding partners, included Aviva, the UN Foundation, the Business and Sustainable Development Commission, and the Index Initiative. And our mission is to hold 2,000 of the world's most influential companies accountable for their part in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by closing the corporate accountability gap. And we aim to close that gap in 2 ways. First, corporate accountability requires information about how companies are performing. And we do this by producing benchmarks. So the methodologies for those benchmarks are based on an agreed set of expectations against which companies are assessed in a way that generates meaningful data and insights on company performance and their contribution to the SDGs. So at WBA, we have 7 benchmarks, which focus on 7 key transformations, which we need to see to achieve the SDGs. And these are depicted on the wheel here on the right, and include social, financial, food and agriculture, nature and biodiversity, digital, urban, and decarbonization. And these benchmarks aim to recognize leadership while also holding the laggards to account. And they also aim to provide clarity in terms of what is expected from the private sector on the SDGs. So WBA has selected 2,000 companies that are considered the most influential globally, what we call keystone companies, and these were selected on 5 criteria: size, position in the value chain, whether they have international subsidiaries, involved in governance processes, and have a significant footprint in developing countries. And second, accountability requires incentives that drive change. So rewarding leaders, but also holding laggards to account, like I mentioned. And these incentives come from stakeholders, such as financial institutions, NGOs, policymakers that use the benchmark data and insights to incentivize the private sector to improve. And this is why all our work is a public good, so that all can use it to collectively drive corporate accountability. I just said the word collective, so this is why we created the Alliance, which now counts 380 plus organizations, including the Aquatic Life Institute. So the WBA Alliance is made up of stakeholders of many different kinds, including many of the stakeholders we want to see used to benchmarks, including civil society organizations, but also consultancies or business platforms, as well as standard setters. So some of you here with us today may be members of the Alliance, so special thank you if you're an active part of that movement. So lastly, if you're interested in learning more about the corporate accountability process and how we view it, we published a corporate accountability paper, which is available on our website if you wish to read it. But now let's dive into the Seafood Stewardship Index more specifically. So first, you might wonder where the Seafood Stewardship Index sits in our 7 transformation frameworks I just showed you. So the SSI is what we call a spotlight benchmark of our food and agriculture transformation. This means that it takes a deep dive into the seafood sector using a separate, more in-depth benchmarking methodology, which looks at seafood-specific social and environmental issues. It might also be helpful to recap how the SSI methodology was developed and how we actually assess companies. So like all benchmarks, the methodologies at WBA, the SSI is grounded in the SDGs, but also builds upon best available science, relevant standards and frameworks that already exist, as well as issue-specific initiatives to ensure the assessments are fit for purpose, but also build on what is already there. And we also, our benchmarks methodology are designed through a multi-stakeholder dialogue, trying to translate on-the-ground needs and stakeholder expectations into tangible metrics. So in practice, it means that we have an expert review committee that oversees the development and revisions of the methodology, but it also means that all versions of the methodology are subject to public consultation. And as I mentioned, we're really focusing on corporate accountability, so we only take into account publicly available information that the companies publish or are willing to publish through the benchmark. And finally, we do give a chance to companies to provide feedback on their assessment during the benchmarking process, so that we make sure we've captured all the relevant information. So those are some examples of some of the standards we've used. It's not an exhaustive list, but just to give you a sense of some of that we're trying to build on existing frameworks as much as possible. For those of you interested in the details of the methodology, we assess companies on 4 pillars. So animal welfare falls under our ecosystems pillar. So the other pillars are governance and strategy, traceability, and social responsibility. And we have 48 indicators. So you can see there's a lot of red on the picture here because we have a large number of social indicators. So we have one animal welfare indicator. So maybe this is going to be in contrast with the previous presentation. We provide a very high level 10,000-foot view on what companies are doing on animal welfare. And I will share a little bit more what we found. So this is our animal welfare indicator. So we're really focused at the initial stages of animal welfare of the companies that we assess. And I'll share in the next slides what are the companies that we assess. So we're looking at a commitment to improve aquatic and farm animal welfare. So our indicator is shared with the food and agriculture benchmark. So it's not completely seafood specific, because we limited ourselves to one indicator. So I can understand that maybe this doesn't cover the specifics of aquatic animal welfare, perhaps as much as it could. So for each, you can see we have 5 elements listed. So for each element, the company receives 0.4 points. So the indicator is scored out of 2. And so we look at whether the company has a policy that addresses animal welfare issues in both its operation and or supply chain. Second, whether the company discloses evidence of processes, such as third-party certification. So here we recognize ASC, BAP, and Global GAP, understanding they're not all equally addressing animal welfare in the same way. Third, whether the company has a target or targets to address animal welfare issues and reports progress against the target. Fourth, whether the target or targets are applicable to its entire portfolio and not just 1 or 2 of its products. And lastly, we assess whether the policies in place cover key aspects of animal welfare. And here you might see that some of them might be applicable to aquatic animal welfare, but a lot of them are more applicable to farm animals. So this is something we would love to improve with maybe in collaboration with some of you. So those are the 30 companies that we assess, which we consider the most influential in the seafood sector. So the assumption is that a small number of companies have a big influence and can accelerate positive change across the entire sector. And these are located in different parts of the value chain. So there's aquaculture companies, fishing companies, aquafeed processors, as well as vertically integrated companies. And all of them are located in either North America, Asia, or Europe. So enough of an introduction to move on to the results, which we just released yesterday. So this is the overall ranking of the companies, but I will maybe just dive right into the animal welfare results. So here the scores per company, and you can see that the average score is quite low of 0.42 out of 2. Maybe also is important to note that this indicator is not applicable to all the companies that we assess. We focused only on aquaculture, on companies that either source from aquaculture operations or are directly dealing or have aquaculture operations. So that means that only 26 out of the 30 companies were assessed on this indicator. So what was I going to say? Sorry. Yeah, so you can see the number of companies that meet each element here. So to give you a sense that you can see that the element that's most met is the third party certification element, and I think I'm ready to admit that this is quite a low bar that we've set, but it means that companies, it shows that companies are engaging in on some level on aquatic animal welfare. But as soon as we look at the other indicators, the performance drops drastically. So most companies do not have a target. None of them have a target that covers all the products. Key issues are not included, and less than a third of the companies have a policy like a comprehensive policy to address animal welfare issues. So what's next? So you can find individual company scores and scorecards on our website. So we will continue to assess the largest seafood companies on their social and environmental impacts every 2 years. We will likely go through another methodology review in the next year. So we'll make sure to reach out, especially on this topic, and the Aquatic Life Institute, being an ally of the WBA, will certainly be involved in this revision. And yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about our work, or specifically on this topic, please reach out. I put my email there at the bottom. So thank you so much for your attention, and I will stop here.
Thank you so much, Helen, for sharing this this recently launched tool that is very useful for us to understand where corporations are at in terms of aquatic animal welfare. We'll make sure we dive deeper into it, and maybe reach out with more questions and share with the Alliance members, of course, so they can also access it. And then, yeah, so maybe James, do you want to lead now with your presentation?
Sure. Yeah, just a moment, just share my screen. Thank you. Okay, you see my screen okay?
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic, great. Hi everyone, hi there, I'm James Morgan. I'm Executive Director of Vegan Hacktivists. Really happy to be here today. Thanks for the invite to the Aquatic Life Institute. So Vegan Hacktivists, we provide free capacity building services to the farmed animal movement, farmed animal protection groups. That of course includes aquatic animals. And we do so by offering free branding, logos, web design, and software projects for the movement as a whole. And today I'll be giving you a whistle-stop tour through AI, how you can use it in your advocacy, in your work, and also the risks that you need to be aware of before you set out and whilst you're on your AI journey. So first off, AI it's in the news a lot. There's a lot of buzz around it right now, but let's distill down exactly what AI is so we're on the same page. So here's an analogy, right? Imagine AI as the equivalent of a kind of digital school kid. A smart school kid can answer questions about all kinds of topics, and they can do things they're educated to do. And just like a school kid learns through hours of repetition, exposure to different problems, AI is also trained on a wide range of data, from text, documents, through to images. But like a child, AI's comprehension is constrained by its education. Therefore, its effectiveness in using that data and that learning in shaping its outputs, it's really dependent on the quality and the breadth of the information that it's fed. Now, depending on its purpose, AI can deliver outputs in various different forms, in text, data tables, and images. And with such wide-ranging applications, AI, as we all know, has now become a commodity. Tech giants like Google, like OpenAI, they're in the news a lot, and they offer AI as a service, saving us from having to develop AI tools on an organization-by-organization basis. ChatGPT is where most of us will knowingly interact with AI. There's also Google Bard, which I would highly recommend. It's accessible via bard.google.com. And until recently, it had one up on ChatGPT. ChatGPT is provided by OpenAI, in that Bard had access to the internet in its data set, so that it could consult web pages, for example, and use the research that it does of the web in order to shape the results that it gives you to the prompts that you feed it. Now, how can we use AI to advocate for fishers? Well, tons of different opportunities to streamline your operations, remove day-to-day admin, and also accelerate your efforts no matter what you're doing within the animal advocacy space. The first area is in content generation. AI can remove that blank canvas challenge that we all have when starting a project from scratch. It can rapidly produce drafts of press releases, of blog posts, social media posts, you name it. And this has got huge potential to save us all time. When it comes to research, AI can be a collaborative, creative collaborator and assistant. It can facilitate super quick brainstorming sessions that's always readily available. Ask a question, it's got an answer for it. You can also ask AI to summarize studies. Personally, I find this really useful. Often when it comes to fish, I've got questions like, do fish feel pain when handled? Do fish feel pain at all? These are all questions that we might refer to studies for those answers. Spent many hours trying to decipher long studies. I'm not the most technical of people. If you've got a public link to a study, you can throw it at Google Bard, for example, and ask it to summarize it. And by guiding it with your prompt, you can get those summaries in a really distilled kind of exact summary format. Let's say you've got some new joiners to your organization. AI can be really useful in training and role playing by offering to kind of build up domain knowledge in areas that are new to those new joiners. It can also give information on laws and regulations that might otherwise have required several hours of kind of one-to-one sessions with new joiners. You'd still have those one-to-one sessions with new joiners, but otherwise you would give them some prompts that they could ask of AI to set them on their journey to make sure that they've got that good basis as an alternative to sifting through reams and reams of Google search results. Finally, something that I'd really love to recommend, which is served neither by ChatGPT or by Google's Bard, is DeepL. Now, DeepL is a tool, an AI tool for translation, and it can rapidly translate documents incredibly accurately into or from a language that you require. This is way better than Google Translate. It's most often free. There's a character limit, but I really recommend the use of DeepL for translation. Those are just a few ideas on how to engage with AI text tools in a really user-accessible way. Let's touch on the risks and limitations of AI, because they're really super important. AI, we know it's really powerful, but there's a few risks that you need to be aware of that will help you navigate your path with AI. So the first thing is bias. AI, like I said earlier, it's limited to the data set that it's trained on. So it could generate responses that are biased or even insensitive, that aren't aligned with the mission of your organization or the values of your organization. So simply using the output of AI could really kind of damage the reputations that your organization has, and also with it trust. Equally, when you're thinking about chatbots, for example, you have to make sure that those chatbots are not biased in their outputs. But bias, what's important here is also remembering that this bias also can lead to what are called hallucinations. This is where AI just makes stuff up based on its data set. AI will rarely not give you an answer. It will give you an answer based on what it knows. It doesn't mean it actually knows the answer. So yeah, be careful for those hallucinations. Something that I'm really starting to notice, it's really worth factoring into your use of AI, is making sure that your use of AI remains authentic. And what I mean by that is if you over-rely on AI to produce copy, to draft emails, to write social media posts, people can start to see through that. And we need to retain that human touch on all of the material that you produce. Because I can spot very easily whether something's written by AI or not, and I'm sure many of you also will be able to, after interacting with ChatGPT or Bard just a few times. There's certain patterns, there's certain languages, certain language that ChatGPT uses. So when considering how to use AI, always remember, just because we can doesn't mean we should. Consider using AI outputs as a template and never as a provider of the finished product. Privacy is an important topic to touch on. We should trust AI companies as much as we trust big tech companies today. We aren't always aware of the ways in which AI companies are using the data that we're feeding it in our prompts. We can give AI tools CSV files, Excel files full of data. We need to just be careful that there's not sensitive information in there that we're revealing to this third party, that whilst providing really valuable results to us, could be using it for other purposes, data collection. So how do we get around this? What are some mitigations? So I just want to go back to that analogy of AI as kind of a smart school kid. So we've all seen news articles of like a 16-year-old that goes to college, is some kind of wonder kid. They've got 3 degrees at the age of 18 or 20. And they're entering the world of work. Let's say you're that hiring manager and you're dealing with this person as a direct report. You would know that this person is super gifted and you would trust them with a lot, but you would also probably be wise to vet pretty much everything they do, at least for 6 months to a year, whilst you navigate how to work best with them. So I'd suggest that you treat AI in exactly the same way as that smart school kid who knows a lot, but doesn't necessarily appreciate the nuance of the what and the how of interacting with other people, and also lacks a lot of actual real world experience. So those are a few things just to keep in mind. So let's move on to a quick demo. We're going to start getting an AI tool in ChatGPT to do some research for us. Now, this prompt asks whether there's a high number of fish farms in the UK and what problems farm fish might typically face. This might be something that a new joiner to organization uses for research purposes in order to understand the state of play of farmed fish. So let's jump out to the presentation, and hopefully my screen share follows me into ChatGPT. I put the prompt into ChatGPT earlier today. I've already got the response, and you can see here ChatGPT has responded with a really nice summary of intensive fish farming and what it is, the scale of it and how it works. We've got some really nice numbered lists of a bit more on how it works, but also those welfare problems that I asked a summary for. And then it moves on to provide a single paragraph on the question that I asked. Can we see that these fish are suffering? And finally, we've got some steps, some points on how to address those welfare issues. So this is a report that ChatGPT is producing in literally seconds, right? I put that prompt in, hit go, and it was, I would say 5 to 10 seconds. to get a human to do this, this would probably take a morning or a day, and it would have taken a lot of work. This is something that ChatGPT can just output immediately. So it's a really impressive use of technology for sure. The next question we had for it is, I've asked Bard to summarize a study, and the study is from Lynn Snedden about whether fish feel pain. And so we've got a really simple answer. Yeah, the study concludes that they likely experience pain. Fantastic. I also asked Bard, how was the study funded? So, let's say you don't have time to trawl through a study. You can get some really succinct and concise answers. But I would still recommend taking the time to kind of sense check the output. A good example of that is I asked exactly the same question of Bard 3 weeks ago, and it gave me a similar but different answer, one that is a bit more detailed. And so what I'd recommend is shaping your prompts are the questions that you asked the AI model, to be more concise, less concise, friendly in tone, or clear, as if they're speaking to a new university graduate, for example. And in shaping those prompts, it puts you in a really good position to actually get the most effective responses from the AI models. So there is, they have two very quick demos of ChatGPT and Bard. What I'm going to leave you with, just in the interest of time, leave you with some resources. Courtesy of Impactful Animal Advocacy, a great group in the farmed animal protection space. And what we have here are two links that I recommend you check out. One is a prompt library. So I've been talking about prompts, like how to shape those prompts, those questions that you ask of the AI models. Sometimes it's tricky to know where to start. So a prompt library guides you in what to ask, how to ask it, in order to hone the outputs. And secondly, we also have like a wiki of AI in general, taking it one step beyond the likes of ChatGPT and Bard. Like, how can you use AI to advocate for animals, and with it, of course, aquatic animals there too. So thank you for listening. I hope you're soon able to start incorporating AI into your work. And please, reach out anytime if you've got any questions about using AI in your animal advocacy.
Thank you so much for the presentation, James. Yeah, as you all can see, this is a little out of the realm of aquatic animals, but not really, because these are new technologies that are being applied in every industry, including the fishing and aquaculture industries. They use AI for several operations within farms, and they're starting to build this technology further. So it's important for us to kind of keep in touch with these new technologies and how we can also use them for our work and to our advantage, and also be prepared for those risks that you mentioned, James, that can also impact our work. So we have a few questions for everybody, but if the members of the audience have any more questions, make sure you drop them on the Q&A. And if it's for one specific panelist, please make sure you write that down as well, so I know who to direct the question to. But maybe we can start with Murilo. So I kind of know a little of the answer to this, but if you can share with the audience, what other species are you planning to include for these trainings or create these trainings for? And also, what has been the reaction of the industry to this training app? Have you seen a big uptake? What has been kind of, has it been what you expected? We want to hear a little more what has been the launch of this app.
Yes, well, in terms of species, our main focus now is tilapia, shrimp, and carp. So the first shrimp training course has been launched this week. So you can get access to that also for free on the FAI.academy website, and the same place that you can find the tilapia ones. And we'll follow the same model. The first module is now is the shrimp welfare indicators that we're using and how to assess those. And the same will happen with the app. So the shrimp app will be coming by, hopefully by January, February, early next year. In terms of the uptake, it's been very, very positive, and I'm very proud of being part of this. As I say, the app itself is just a tool. So the farmer needs really to understand how they could use that for their benefit. So the way we structured it is, first of all, the information is owned by the farmers and it's for the farmers. So he can choose to share the information with others if he likes to, but it's his. So it's an internal use tool. Let's give them confidence that no one will be picking out, and there's not linked to any people with second or third interests. And my experience with farmers in the past is that when you have such tools linked to a product or linked to a company, like a feed or health company, there's always this, well, he's just trying to sell me more things. So because it's independent, it gives them the confidence. I can share with you some of the experiences in Brazil. So there are some companies already using it. One of them is the largest Brazilian tilapia hatchery. They are producing now over 10 million fingerlings per year. And actually what they are doing now is they are assessing the welfare for every batch that they send out to their customer. And they are requesting the customer to make the assessments when the fish arrives. And that's been used as a management tool and to say, okay, I send you good fish, you're receiving good fish. If something happens after that, don't come to me and say it was the genetics or a problem on the delivery. And it's a commercial situation. I just received a WhatsApp now, so people are using the training courses to standardize the knowledge between their teams. So some of the companies, they have more than 20, 25, and a high turnover. So usually it takes time for people to really make it uniform, what you know, although people know, but what you know and what you measure and what we are looking for on the day-to-day. So they are using those two tools to uniform and to teach newcomers on the companies on what to look for and to record what they are doing. So it's been quite interesting. The expectations is that people more than download it and have in their cell phone, which is one metric, is that they are actually using it. And now from the last, it's just being made public last month. From the last 30 days, we see exponential growth of people actually using it on a daily basis to make assessments. So it's been quite interesting. Different countries, different perspectives. In Thailand is a little bit slower because the profile of the producers are different, but we are finding ways of making this accessible for them to understand what the benefits they can take for it. So yeah, it's been quite positive. I'm happy with the outcome.
That's great news, and it's really good to hear that it is a tool that farmers are using and feel, like you say, comfortable using because they feel safe in introducing the data because it's not going to be used in other platforms. So I think that's a great option to give them, whether they share or not the data. And I want to thank you, Murilo, because I see you've been very active in the chat box answering questions on how to get the app. So thank you for that. So maybe we will move on to Carol and Maria, with whoever wants to answer these questions. So how do you prioritize usually what resources to work on or what species to work on? What kind of criteria do you use to make those decisions?
So the database started with the species that are being more farmed globally. And we are going down through that list. But at some point we started also adding species that are not so well known, just to have a balance between species that are being very farmed, but are not, there is not so much information out there. Like in developing countries, they use species that are from those countries, and there is not so much information there because there is not so much research there as well. So we try to balance a little bit between countries with a lot of research and the species that are being studied there, and other countries where the information is not so extensive. Does that answer the question?
It does. Carol, do you want to add anything else?
No, it's basically this. Maria is right.
Great. Well, thank you for answering that. And yeah, what you say, I think it's very crucial because for some species, there has been a big push in research and understanding their welfare. So we have a lot of information, like, for example, salmon, but then other species that are heavily farmed in certain regions of the world, there are a lot of question marks. So I think your database highlighting like those gaps in research can also help academia and government start taking interest in creating more resources there. All right, let's continue down the questions. This one is for Helen. So how can aquatic animal welfare advocates use this benchmark for their advocacy with the private sector? And what do you feel is the general attitude from corporations to aquatic animal welfare?
Yeah, thank you. So I think, as I mentioned, an indicator is a very high level assessment, but I think we see that companies are still at the very beginning of that journey on animal welfare. So that's why I think we've set the bar quite low so that we can already start capturing the initial steps the companies are taking. But even then, many companies are not taking those initial steps and not even thinking, I would say, about that issue. So I think that's why our indicator might seem quite basic, but unfortunately we have to start basic to start engaging companies on this topic. So I would encourage to look at the data. So all our data, so indicator level scores for each of the companies are available publicly on our website. I'm happy to put the link in the chat after this. And I'm happy to sort of also explain the different elements of our indicator and what they mean. So behind each of those elements, we also have additional guidance that we haven't published yet, which explains a bit more specifically what we look for to meet those elements. So this also might be helpful to explain a little bit the results that we see. We will also be publishing for each of the indicators and each of these elements the evidence that we found and why some evidence was enough to meet certain criteria and not. So really the detailed level of how companies perform or met or didn't meet a certain indicator. So this will come in the coming weeks or maybe a couple of months as we clean those up and that we publish them on our website. And this might help advocates to get a bit more granular in terms of how each company's are meeting or not meeting some of the elements that we of this specific indicator. So yes, I think we see that most companies are not don't really, at least those large companies. I think if we did went at, there's a lot of aquaculture operations or small aquaculture operations that are maybe more concerned and about those issues. I think the large companies that we assess, it seems that it comes after a lot of other issues that they are dealing with. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question, and I'll put the link in the chat about the more detailed data we have for now on the website.
Yeah, that's very consistent with what we found from the industry as well, where maybe other aspects are being prioritized, so maybe environmental concerns because of, the whole climate emergency we're dealing with, or labor rights because, there's been a lot of investigations on that recently. But the reality is that animal welfare is related to all of these issues as well. And we just need to drive that point home that you need to address all of it as a whole to actually solve the issues that they face. But like you say, it's a process. So we have a few more questions for everyone. This one is for James. So are there any other AI resources that you did not have time to discuss today, but that you think are also very helpful for us to know? And also, how can we learn more on our own as to which prompts work better? Which resources are available other than the ones that you've already shared?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'd start with that prompt library. That prompt library should give you everything that you need in order to get on your way. Another thing you could do is you could just ask ChatGPT. It will tell you. So, you know, if you want some guidance on what do I ask and how do I ask it, it will give you that output, and it's quite an interesting thing to see, really. It can often ask you questions to say, look, this is what you need to think about when you're trying to do X, Y, and Z. In terms of other tools, something that I'm really interested in, I'm not sure how applicable it is to animal advocacy, but is the use of AI to create imagery, which is, you know, it's incredibly powerful, just like the kind of text-based AI tools. So organizations could use it for like product marketing. What you can do is actually you can give it a real life photo of the product you're trying to sell. An example might be plant-based salmon, you know, let's say, and you can say, right, create a marketing image for that, and it can do an absolutely amazing job of creating that. But with it, you've got to be aware that at the same time, what that tells us is that it's going to be much trickier to be able to spot to differentiate real imagery versus you know, AI created imagery. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for how we might tackle that, but yeah, I'd suggest people play around with like image-based AI, because you know the possibilities are really endless of using text-based and image together in order to like instruct like what you do, how you do it, and how that might look like.
I love the inception answer of like, just ask GPT what you should ask GPT type of cycle. It's a little mind blowing for me still, but good to know that it can also answer that question for you. Thank you for that. Let's see. For Murilo, another question. So what kind of issues have you encountered in training given to the farmers, or that you've supplied the farmers? And have you seen that they are willing to change or improve their practices based on the results they get from your app? And also, can you tell us a little about the hurdles that you have faced while doing like the bottom up approach, meaning working with producers from the ground up?
Yeah, I'll answer that questions with the concept, one of the initial concepts by having this bottom-up approach, is that during many years, welfare conversations or welfare discussions has always focused on the bad farmers, that people are struggling, that people are not really interested on doing something different of what they are doing. But I am a farmer and I talk to farmers on a daily basis, and there are plenty of very good farmers out there. So the approach with this tool and the learning is to support the good farmers first to improve, be even better, but also to be able to demonstrate that they are doing good things already, that they are in the process of improvement. So because we align with those farmers and giving them conditions and resources to push back some of the representation that we do, that aquaculture sector is not great, or agriculture is bad, or food production is not good, to give a voice also with data, with resources, with a systematic approach, including very strong science on it, to say, look, it's not like that. I'm doing different things and I can show actually to you how to do that. Of course, we believe that the resources are there for everyone to use, and people will be using this to really fix problems that are natural from their business and been there for a long time. But the crucial point is that the farmers and the processors, they need to do something different. They just not a process or something bureaucratic that they need to do to pass a certification. I'm not saying that that's bad, but that's usually how it goes. Oh, I need to do this because someone is requesting me to do. Then you say, oh, okay, I'll check a list and that's all done. So it's the other way around. So I'm very happy and I am confident that the way we can really, really impact and demonstrate improvement is to focus on the people that are spending most of their time with animals, that are actually the farmers and the team that are working with the animals on a daily basis, in order they can understand it, they can see that it's not right that 50% of my fish are dying on a regular basis. This is just not normal. Saying that there's different behavior, or feeding too much, feeding too less, or not giving the right water quality is not the right approach, because it's not good for your business and for the fish. So that's the concept around it. So yeah, and at the moment people start seeing why my score is red, they immediately go there, because we can actually see accessing training courses and see, well, why is that a problem? Then they go and go and go, and then they start looking for, no one wants to look bad today. Another thing is that it's always the question, it's people can lie. People can go there, just click everything's all right. But it's the same effort to do that than to actually go there and observe and check and check. So it's transparency, it's about that. Is why would you lie if you can really show that you're doing well and you are improving and there's a path on the way? So yeah, I'm positive about that. I'm being very skeptical working with that for 25 plus years, but now I'm very, very happy, I would say.
That's very, very encouraging to hear. And you know, I agree with you that we can't leave out of the conversation very important stakeholders like the farmers, like the employees of the farms, because they are the ones that are interacting with the animals and that are seeing these mortalities, high disease, and that is not good for anyone, nor the animals, nor the production, nor the farmers, etc. So I really like that approach where you're giving them kind of the opportunity to improve without necessarily pressuring them to actually have to do it. It's just more voluntary. I think that will start changing the mindset of the industry as well. All right, another question. This one is for James. So what do you think can be done or is there something that we can do to reduce the biases of AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. What can we do to reduce the bias of AI? Well, what we can do is give it more data, more training data. So, you know, outside of the application of AI as a kind of text-based generator or an image-based generator, might be like an AI model that assesses the welfare of a particular type of fish. And it would do that based on, you know, thousands or tens of thousands of images or videos of that fish. Now, if you wanted to expand the application of that tool to other species, you would have to feed it exactly the same type of data, but for that other species. If you didn't, and you tried to use that tool for that purpose, it would struggle, it would hallucinate, it would get stuff wrong. So this isn't something that we necessarily have the power to address in our own hands. We can't feed AI more data necessarily, although giving it a prompt itself is doing that, it's feeding it. But that's something that the kind of AI companies have to continue working on, and they're doing that. That's why, you know, when you load up ChatGPT today, it's got a little number against it, ChatGPT 3, 3.5, 4. This represents the evolution of the model with extra features, but with it, extra data. It's been trained on using data differently.
Great, thank you for that. Hopefully, the AI companies will start being more aware of these biases and addressing it internally. Let's see, what other questions do I have here? I think this one you replied in the chat, Helen, but maybe it'd be interesting for everyone to hear. So are investors and banks actively referencing the benchmark? And which stakeholders have you found are most concerned about this information, according to your experience? And also if any governments or regulators have participating in setting or developing this benchmark.
Yeah, thank you. So when it comes to financial institutions, I think we're seeing a big focus on biodiversity because there's a lot of development happening. You might have heard of the TNFD, and there's other regulations also kicking in Europe. So I think there the big concern is about biodiversity impacts. And I understand animal welfare should certainly be part of that. And I'm not sure to what extent it is being considered or it will be considered. I know that the TNFD, for example, is developing sector-specific guidance for aquaculture, which is up for every consultation still. So it would be interesting to see if animal welfare has been considered as part of that guidance or not. And how that could sort of be plugged in by this biodiversity focus that we see financial institutions are having. In our engagement, we see that that stakeholders interested in the animal welfare performance of seafood companies is mostly civil society organizations in their advocacy work. So I think it's still at this stage where we haven't had specific questions on this from other stakeholders. And have government participated in the development of our benchmarks? I don't believe they have, certainly not on this specific topic. I was not involved in a specific development of that, in the development of that specific indicator, so I could go and double check, but I don't think we received any feedback on this topic from governments. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you so much for addressing the question. And then kind of a tricky one for Carol or Maria. I don't know if you all have that available, but somebody asked if you could show samples of the analysis you did on the different kind of species that are in the database, but I don't know if you have that handy. If not, it's completely fine. We understand.
I think this question is more for me, but of course, Maria, if you would like to comment something, but I think this is more related to the postdoc analysis that I'm doing. Yeah, it's not nice to show some sample of this because they are in Excel sheets in Portuguese. It's chaotic a bit, but if I can share my screen for very briefly, I can show you some preliminary results, and maybe this is enough, or at least it's nice for the people who ask it. May I?
Yes, please go ahead. I'm sure there's some people really interested in statistics and that nitty-gritty goodness.
Okay, are you seeing it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the preliminary results about the first part that I just explained for you, the welfare score classification of the species. So for this, we calculated the percentage of the FishEth score of each species with a profile already published in the FAIRFISH database. So we have 83 species here in this graph, classified by the such percentages. And then you can see, for example, that Oreochromis niloticus nilitilapia is the first one with the highest welfare score among all the species. And also you can see that we have many species with a 000 value in the welfare scores that I also mentioned for you. And then these ones are the ones with the lowest, of course, welfare scores. And this line here, below this line here, this dotted line, you can see, of course, the opposite of this. We have 20 species with at least 20% of the maximum possible value of the welfare score. So I would say that these are the species currently with the greatest chance of experiencing or to experience welfare under the current farming conditions or in improved farming conditions in the future. So for the species here with a 000 value in the welfare score, As I told you, I reclassified them by calculating the percentages of the non-existent findings and the unclear findings, no findings and unclear findings. And now we can see some species, for example, here, Papyrocranus afer or Megalobrama amblicephala, with the highest percentages of non-existent and unclear findings of these 000 species. So they are 000 not because exactly we know that the likelihood, potential, and certainty are in fact low for the welfare, but we have too many knowledge gaps for these species before we can say anything about them. And in the top of this graph, we have the opposite. Here we have Oncorhicons kisuchi, Diplodocus puntazo, and Solea solea, with the lowest percentage of non-existent and unclear findings. So, in fact, the 000 welfare score of this species mean that they, at least at currently, they have, in fact, low or medium, just low or medium likelihood and potential and certainty for welfare under farming conditions. Yes, it's this.
Great, that is so interesting. And yeah, we hope to see the published results once you finish your studies. I'm sure they will be very valuable for the movement and all stakeholders involved. So that is all the time we have for this panel. So thank you so much to all the panelists. It really was really interesting to hear about all the work that you're doing. And I am sure at least us at the Aquatic Life Institute will incorporate a lot of the tools that you have shared in our work and also share with our members of the Aquatic Animal Alliance. And our next panel will start in 15 minutes and will be about certifications and standards. So make sure you come back for that. But we will take a short break so everyone can get some water, coffee, whatever you need to continue. And I'm sorry for the noise. Mexico City is the loudest city in the world, I think. There's always something going on outside. So thank you all for joining us for this panel, and we'll see you in a bit. Bye.